Thank you for talking to us, sir. Let's begin by talking about the macro picture of the economy, investment banking sector, and whatever is happening across the world. How do you think is impacting India and the steps which have been taken so far?
Okay, I think on the macro, first the positives. I think clearly we're an economy that is driven by local consumption, local investments. So on a domestic basis, I think the economy is still in pretty decent shape and probably quite resilient when you compare to a lot of other markets that are hugely dependent upon export-oriented economy, right? So that's one part of it. I think the second part is, in the same breath, is that today, given post-COVID, given the inflationary pressures that are not evident in numbers, but there is inflation in many aspects, and then compounded by the West Asia crisis through diesel and fuel, which I think there may be more hikes on the way. I think the average household income today has gone up a little bit, but net private savings have actually come down.
All right.
And when private savings come down, net of household debt, I think that's when the gap between savings and investments begin to show up. Obviously, the government has done a tremendous job in the last, I would say, 4 years post-COVID in bankrolling the economy by cutting checks for infrastructure, and you're seeing tremendous progress on roads, highways, railways. So obviously there is the stimulus coming through that, but that's the government balance sheet, right? So ultimately, for an economy, even if you are growing at 6-7% and a 4 capital output ratio, you need 28% savings, and I think we are way short of that.
Right.
So then the question becomes, how do you bring in imported savings? And then again, thanks to West Asia crisis, thanks to the market valuations of the past, thanks to the PEG ratios in India, which are a bit more expensive than some of the other South Asian and other economies, we've seen a lot of outflow of FIIs. So what used to fill up the gap was obviously incoming NRI remittances, which are still intact, I'm assuming. I don't have the numbers. You had a lot of FI inflows, and then you had some amount of FDI. And I think on all the last two fronts, the stock market flows as well as the FDI, it is definitely lower than before. Again, compounded either by market valuations or West Asia crisis or better opportunities somewhere else in the world on a relative basis, we are finding it, I think, difficult to get enough savings. So therefore, you come back to the saving investment gap. It is quite a yawning gap. And I think really a lot depends upon our Indian private sector that needs to now step in, because they have pretty under-leveraged balance sheets. They have cash on the balance sheets. I think they need to step in and create the investment climate and try to bridge that gap. So look, I think the jury's out. Government is doing a lot in terms of ease of doing business and all the feedback that they've got. But the private sector in India will have to now, I think, step in a bit more aggressively. So I think that's the macro picture. At a level, you can say we are resilient, we're in a safe zone. But when you start looking at the dual deficits and you start looking at the saving investment gap and the need to get imported capital, I think that becomes a bit of a challenge. And then you have a declining rupee because of expected current account deficits, not enough inflows. So it's a bit of a cycle right now. I think the country has seen many of these before, so it's not the first time. And I think between the private sector stepping up, between hopefully some government steps to be taken in the very near future, I hope, we should be able to tide over this.
So shifting focus to startups and positivity in the economy, well, India has really a big startup ecosystem, much to be talked about in the world, but what is going to define the next wave of startups in India, the unicorns which are coming up? We have seen enough now, ups and downs in that sector, but according to you, what's going to come?
I think our startup ecosystem has actually matured very quickly, and partly again, government's initiatives on Startup India, Scale Up India, but also I think the venture capital community and private equity community has played a very positive role. We have seen a few accidents in the past decade, So the founders, I think, have the right expectation of their investors, and the investors have the right expectations of the founders. So I think the governance models are getting much better. The business models are also getting a lot more realistic, scalable, and addressing the need of Bharat or India, right? That's I think the big change that happened. I think now we need to see a lot more on business transformation and AI, which I think is just starting. So actually, I won't be able to comment too much on it, but I would say the next wave of startups or even existing startups who transform their businesses to scale up, to become more efficient, to make profits, will have to, in one way or another, use a lot more AI for business transformation. And of course, then the AI companies themselves. We at Sorin have made a few investments in 3 AI companies, but too early to say where they will go.
Okay. Yeah.
Just a last comment on that. I think the world is moving so rapidly on AI. I just fear sometimes that we shouldn't get left behind. And therefore, I think it's incumbent upon VC firms and private equity firms, especially the global ones, to bring in the know-how here and give it to our local founders and local investee companies. Otherwise, we'll just become the application guys, not the inventors, not the innovators.
We are missing that
that's
that link, IP link. Yeah. But sir, talking about again startups and founders, do you think they're more focused on fundraising, valuations than focusing on scalable business models?
I think that time is gone. Like I said, I think that maturity has come along in the last 5 years. First, they were always worried about just raising a round with some crazy valuation and then trying to grow into the valuation. I at least find now that I spend quite a bit of time on startups, is that they're being more realistic. Okay, now. They want to build scalable businesses.
Maturity has come.
Maturity's come in. They also know that if they have to dilute to get good investors in at a reasonable valuation, they're diluted, but of a larger pie. So they're beginning to see the math work for them. They're also, I think, realizing that if you're not scaled up and sizable, you're going to get left behind, because I think scale does matter. Just uniqueness of a business model of a small fintech, a small wealth tech doesn't matter. Ultimately, you have to scale up and be scalable. So I think they're quite focused on that. And I think we're finding more realistic business models. Someone delivering, food in 10 minutes. I mean, frankly, there's a limit to it. I mean,
criticized also by everyone, including Commerce Minister.
Trying to deliver food in 10 minutes or trying to deliver a coffee with a sandwich in 10 minutes. I mean, okay, it's a great business model, but
no innovation.
One is innovation, other is that really the need of an Indian consumer today, right?
R&D is suffering.
So we'll see. But I think there's a lot more maturity, a lot more self-realization. And the PE and VC folks are also driving that change, which is good.
So coming to AI, you touched upon AI. As a past president of ASSOCHAM, come in the investment sector in a big way, what do you think? What is the message to the youth? How should they? What do you think? What will happen? It's not easy to guess though. But will it be a disruptor causing job losses or creating jobs?
That's a tough question here. Look, I'm not much in that field, but I would say that if our companies don't adopt and adapt, but also use AI aggressively, I think you could have the negative effect of it, right? So I think it's incumbent upon our companies now to adopt and adapt quickly. I think we need massive training on the AI side. There's some universities coming up on AI. I think IIT Madras is doing a little bit. I think Andhra Pradesh is doing some stuff. And we've got to invite some of our innovators from overseas. I met a couple of really smart AI entrepreneurs overseas, Indian origin, who want to come back and give back to India. Yeah, they want to come back and create universities. They want to create, a whole cadre of AI culture. So we've got to be now very open to getting our own talent back from America. Otherwise, I can just hazard a guess, but as good as yours.
Yes.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think we are a little bit behind the curve on that.
So, as a founder of Sorin Investment, also, so what themes will drive investment going forward? What big sectors you're betting on?
We are actually quite agnostic to sector, to be honest. Okay. We're doing the direct to consumer. We're doing retail brands. We're doing obviously fintech. We're doing something very interesting in debt resolution, not debt collection, but debt resolution. We have just done 2 or 3 enterprise deals, SaaS deals. We've done a couple of AI deals. So we're actually quite agnostic. We are not specialized in one particular area, but we are seeing a lot of deals coming which are real businesses. Like we have invested in a pain management clinics chain.
Okay.
Invested in a company that manages retail stores. We've put money into a company that makes bottom wear. So these are real businesses that you can touch and feel.
Yeah.
I think you're seeing that trend coming back, but at the same time, we have to also look at some of these hyperbolic growth companies, and therefore we are making a few bets in AI. We'll see where they go. But you got to have a barbell strategy. You got to have both. A few could be 0 ones, and a few could be boundaries.
That's
not sixers.
How the investment banking sector works. So talking about Viksit Bharat 2047 goal. Now, again, coming back to you as a leader, a past president of ASSOCHAM, somebody who's founder now. What role will private sector play in the Viksit Bharat 2047 goal, and also what other factors should play there?
I think the private sector, like I said in the beginning, has to play a massive role. Okay, you cannot expect the government to be using its own balance sheet. I mean, unless you want to just promote only the public sector, which is a different ball game. I would say the private sector has to really set up first. Secondly, we have had protection in one way or another for our industries, many industries, for many years. Automobiles, pharmaceuticals, a lot of things in technology, manufacturing. So I think now with the tariffs and FTAs being signed, which I think is a very positive step the government is taking, I think we will be exposed to a lot more competition. So I think the private sector has to first and foremost reinvest in their own businesses. Technology, capital, AI, talent, everything, right? I mean, the protection days are going to get definitely over. So secondly, they need to be freely importing. Once the FTAs and all get signed, we got to import technology. We don't have all the technology. We've got to not be shy about importing technology and then trying to use it for our benefit and then trying to commercialize it. And the final step will be, making in India, taking the advantage of Indian ecosystem and then exporting our way out of this, because exports will have to play a critical role towards Viksit Bharat, right? So we will need to adapt technology, we will need to import technology, we will need to spend money on R&D, we will have to get up the tech curve big time if you want to get towards the 2047 goal. And frankly, our private sector should be enthusiastic and capable. Look, balance sheets are highly underleveraged. Banks' balance sheets are underleveraged and cleaned up after the IBC and many efforts by the government and the public sector banks to clean up. So frankly, there is the cash available to reinvest. So the reinvestment mentality has to come from the private sector.
Okay.
Government can obviously keep prodding and pushing and creating all kinds of missions, the AI mission, but ultimately the private sector has to step in. That's my view. So to your short, blunt answer, private sector has a 70-75% role to play towards the 2047 goal.
Cool. So talking about ease of doing business, well, you keep on having meetings with the government. What do you think has happened over the last few years? The situation has improved, definitely, we have seen, but what more needs to be done?
Thing is, they are absolutely seized of the issues that the domestic industry has given them and also the international investors. So there's, as you know, there's a high-level committee under the cabinet secretary that's looking at the issues that are to the level of minutiae of legality, state by state. They're trying to address a lot of things, but this will take some time. And ease of doing business, I think, will definitely get better with the kind of effort going on. But it is such a complicated country with our structure and the state levels and the district levels. It's a huge cultural change that has to happen if you want to invite investments and also domestic investment. I mean, one reason why private sector may not be investing as much is because they probably don't find it easy. And if they don't find it easy, how will the foreigners find it easy, right? So I think that ease of doing business is definitely going to get better, and it should be the single-minded aim for this government. That's one. I think they're very seized of it. So it is probably happening, but it won't show up overnight. The second thing I think is the cost of doing business. All right. And I think the two costs where India was quite uncompetitive, and I think it's come a long way, is the logistics cost and the cost of power. And that with the,
compared to the countries we are competing with.
Well, definitely logistics cost, I think now are just barely double-digit good. It used to be mid-teens. It's come down a lot. And that's the whole PM Gati Shakti plan and all that stuff that is coming into shape. I think they have very effective programs going on. Cost of power should come down with the effort on renewables. But again, now with the energy crisis, I don't know where we go. So these two costs, I think, will also attract investment, because the cost of doing business will also come down, besides ease of doing business. So I think it's a good thing to look out for. So I would look out for these two things for the next 2 years as very important, I would say absolutely important factors if you want to get investments back, both foreign and Indian. Because you hear it so often from the foreigners कि आपके लोग invest नहीं करें तो हम क्यों invest करें, right? So I think we need that momentum to start now.
So coming to MSMEs, the backbone of the economy, definitely big challenge. Geopolitical PM's austerity drive was one form to lessen or smoothen that impact, negative impact that could happen. So for MSMEs, you think that what steps could more be taken? Capital excess. Government has announced some schemes in the cabinet. What more can be done there?
देखो अभी तो MSMEs I think are at the bottom of the food chain. Those poor guys, they are so critical to our industry, and they are actually at the receiving end. If, as you look at the West Asia crisis, the cost of power, the cost of energy, and the tariff impact, they are actually at the receiving end of it. So I think we have to be very cognizant that they will need support. And the CGLS scheme 5.0 has been announced by the finance minister. These are all going to be very, very handy, right? And we saw even at COVID time, the schemes worked very well, and therefore the SMEs survived. There may be some tweaking required on NPA recognition by RBI to help these folks. Maybe change it to 180 days from 90. So there are a few tactical things that the government might need to put its head together with the regulators to make it easy for the MSMEs. And finally, I think RBI should look at opening a refi window for the MSMEs as well. You have refinance for agri through NABARD. You have refinance for housing through NHB. I think we might need some kind of a refinancing for MSME loans as well. So let's see. I think these packages hopefully are being discussed and hopefully will come together. But this is the time when I think India together, private and the government sector, will have to put its head together to address. But look, MSMEs are the backbone, and if they get hit because of not honoring their payments on time and they get classified as NPAs, then they don't get more credit. My God, it's a real vicious cycle. So I think we need that intervention, and I think the scheme that the finance minister announced is extremely useful. And let's see if RBI can come up with something on the refinancing side as well, or like a window for refi.
So one short message you can give to the youth of the country that is battling with a lot of issues, AI, job is there, technology changing. What is one short message to the youth of the country?
Look, I think India's massive opportunity. It's a very diverse country, and I would say the educated youth have to be very clear that they seek out training, vocational skill in the right areas. Okay, there's no point producing, crazy engineers and doctors when the need is in some totally different area.
Yeah.
So I think that they have to also wake up and ask for help. And there are so many schemes that are available, both with the government and the private companies are doing so much. I think the youth have to be very careful that the future is in India. There's a massive growth opportunity. And if they want to be a part of it, it's not just about creating money, it's also, utilizing your energy. I think they need to get trained in the right areas. But look, the future, I think, is here. Democracy is thriving. The demographics are thriving. And therefore, this whole West Asia crisis and all this will also pass along. And I think the youth have to really look at training, self-employment, be smart about it rather than dabble in futures and options. That's the way I can put it bluntly. And there's never a quick buck that you can make in life. People like us have worked for like 4 decades now. And it takes time, right? So yeah, they've got to have a long-term view. And I'm sure that, look, I think the schemes I read about in the press from the government and the private sector, there's a lot going on. People have to tap into it and use it, right? So I think it's up to the youth, frankly. But the market is in India. The future is in India.
Great, sir. Pleasure talking to you, sir. Thanks for giving time to us, and pleasure to know your views for our viewers, youth, policymakers, everyone. Thank you once again, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.